Hey, Kids Cook Real Food, Katie Kimball here, and I am so pleased at the very end of my day to be talking to Georgia Harding all the way in Australia at the beginning of her day, which is so fun. Thanks for being here with us, Georgia.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
So we are going to talk about school lunch and feeding kids. Georgia is a naturopath. She's a mom of two kids, 15 and 11, from Queensland, Australia, and Georgia's really passionate about making fresh whole food and connecting as families like totally doable. So we're very much on the same wavelength there. Her common sense approach, beautiful, delicious recipes really help her readers be well nourished, which is the name of her blog. It's so great. So what's your story, Georgia? How did you get into pursuing natural health and then starting a blog instead of staying in clinical practice?
Yeah, look, I was really sick as a kid with a heart condition, actually, and went and saw a naturopath in my late teens, early 20s, and that was late teens, really. And, a condition I was told had a really poor prognosis. I completely resolved altogether, and touch wood. That's been the case ever since. So I decided to study naturopathy. I was just so impressed and so empowered with my experience with this particular naturopath that, yeah, I wanted to become one myself. So I'd, already studied an arts degree out of school, just completely abandoned that, and went to uni, started clinical practice actually even while I was studying, because in those days you could kind of get away with doing that. And one of my lecturers wanted me to join her practice, so did that. And I suppose the rest is history. We actually moved locations from the west coast of Australia to the east coast of Australia. And Australia being a large country, it was a huge move for us. I had babies and stopped practicing. I practiced for a little while when my daughter was little, but then stopped practicing. My husband was away traveling a lot, and he had a thriving business, so I suppose I took a bit of a back step. And then when it came time that my kids were starting, my second child was about to start school, I really, really wanted to get back into things. I actually did a postgrad in that little hiatus, and upgraded my diploma to a degree. And then, just decided that I wanted to do something. And I had some friends around, and I'd cooked a big feast. And we were talking about, the fact that I was a bit hesitant to go back into clinical practice with Paul being away a lot and us not having a lot of family support. So I decided to start a blog, and I was one of those people that I really didn't even know what a blog was, to be honest. I just knew that I loved cooking, and I loved sharing my passion, and feeding kids was just something that I was so passionate about. Looking around, other kids and what they were eating, I realised that my kids were quite extraordinary in the way that they ate, because they had amazing palates and just loved whole foods. And I just wanted to share how I got to that point. So, I started Well Nourished, had no idea what I was doing. Literally, barely had even been one of those people that ever really looked online. And, now I find myself today online, for big hours every day of the week. So, things have changed a lot. But, I love it. It's something that gives me a lot of flexibility. It's something that I absolutely love doing. I love, food is my passion, and the more I create and get creative in the kitchen, the more I love it. So,
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great story of just, you started with wanting to help people and share your passion. And it's totally what you do. It's very transparent on your blog. And I love that you said, my kids are quite extraordinary. Like if I had an Australian accent, I would say that about my kids every day. I love that.
Very funny.
So, Georgia, one of the ways you talk about food on your blog is S.L.O.W. S.L.O.W, all capitals. So unpack that a little for us.
Okay. So, I just really encourage people, when they get confused about the best things to eat, to really think about slow food. So that's food that's in season, because food that's in season is the most nourishing. It's, most nutritionally dense food. It's what nature intends us to be eating at that particular time of the year. So for me, that's really important. The L stands for locally grown, if possible. Food that's sourced. We live in this world with transport that's so widely available. So, I'd say to people, when you're shopping, if you can get food that is grown as locally as possible. In Australia, we're so blessed. We have farmers markets, and most of the food that we eat is grown, within a very small radius of where I live. I understand that in some parts of the world, I've lived in other parts of the world, and that's not always the case. But yeah, if at all possible, get food that has been transported and stored, and that's generally imported food. So that's the L part. Organic if possible, or pesticide free, or just the food that's had the least human intervention. So, it's been exposed to the least amount of chemicals. And the W is whole food. Food, again, that's not, it's made by nature, not in a factory. So yeah, that's my basic food philosophy. And I think that it's very simple, really. If you can apply that to, if you're looking at food and you're asking yourself, is this good for me or not so good for me? If you just think of slow food, then hopefully that will help to make that decision clear.
Mm-hmm. Fair to say, I'm hoping W is the most important.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Number one, it should be at the start, not at the end. But absolutely, yeah, whole food obviously is a primary focus. Yeah, if you can't get your head around the first three, then definitely the W, the whole food philosophy, is really, really important. I also say to people, forget low GI. I love low HI, and that's low human intervention is another way of kind of putting a spin on whole foods, I suppose.
Yeah, that's nice. Or low factory intervention, even better.
Yeah.
What about, so I live in Michigan, which is in the northern United States, and we are having our last farmer's market is tomorrow. I'm in mourning. We're going to have 6+ months of really no local food growing because it's going to be winter. What do you recommend for that? What's my best course of action? Like, do I not eat salad all winter?
No, not at all. As I said, the whole food is definitely the priority, without a doubt. And obviously, if you had a choice of being able to source food that was, from an area, somewhere within the United States, that's going to be preferable to getting something that's come from China, for example. So, that would be my kind of hierarchy of what I'd go for is, obviously if you're coming from America or South America, that's always going to be way better. Canada, they're better choices than you, getting Australian produce, for example. I don't know if you even have Australian produce, but if you did, Yeah,
I don't know that I've seen produce from Australia. Meat, though, we can import meat from Australia.
Yeah.
And I would say, just to kind of encourage people too, like, it's neat to talk to kids about the seasons and how different foods grow in different seasons. And we tend to be drawn to different foods at different times of year too. And that's probably our bodies talking, right? We want those more comfort foods in the winter, the root vegetables, the things that store well. And it does, and then we want salads in the summer, and it kind of makes sense. But I do think we override our bodies because we can order a salad any day of the year now.
Yes, absolutely.
Not possible 100, 200 years ago. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I love the flexibility that you build into that. And I've noticed that your recipes on Well Nourished are always very versatile, like more than most on the web. I always hear bloggers saying, like everyone's always asking me in the comments, like, what if I don't eat this and I substitute this? And I'm like, I don't know, make the recipe as written. But your recipes like have all the, what if I don't eat this? How do I substitute that? Why do you create them that way?
I suppose as a naturopath, I have a very clear understanding that we are all very, very unique. So, if I was treating someone that came to me for headaches or hormonal issues, and the next person that came in with the exact same symptoms, I wouldn't always give them the same medicine. So, it's the same with food. And, most recipes, probably with the exception of baking, although I do still offer a lot of variations with baking, I just test those rigorously to make sure that they work. I think that cooking is something that is quite versatile. And I also do it because I really want to encourage people to learn and build confidence around cooking. And that, if a recipe says kale, if you swapped it out for spinach, it's not going to change the recipe significantly. So there are so many little swaps that you can do. And yeah, I mean, I even it's funny, some of my recipes, I have a lamb shank recipe on my website with like lentils and rosemary and bacon and lots of vegetables. And I even have a vegetarian version of that recipe because I was a vegetarian for 20 years. So I quite often am able to adapt meat recipes into vegetarian recipes. So yeah, it's although I often question myself, I don't think anyone's actually got this far, because if they were vegetarian or vegan, they probably haven't even opened the lamb recipe. But I just like to put it out there, and yeah, and also just so to save parents time shopping, if they're looking at a recipe and they don't have a particular ingredient, and then they can read on and say, oh, you know, okay, I can actually still make this because I can swap that for that. So yeah, there are many reasons that I offer the variations. And it's just something, it's the way I cook. It's it's something that comes easy to me. And I realized quite early on with Well Nourished that the things that I take for granted that I know about cooking and know about substituting, not everyone does. So now I spell it out in my recipes.
Yeah, and well, it's a gift, and it's very generous to all of us. At Kids Cook Real Food, is when we teach kids, we talk about cooking being the foundation of connection, confidence, and creativity. So I love that you use the word confidence, you know, and that's definitely what we want, not only for our adults, but for our kids too, to feel like they have some control and they can change things up. So that's great, you know, that your recipes are made that way. And you said something very kind of passerby that is really... it's really striking, though, and you just treated it like it was nothing. You said, you know, if people came in with the same symptoms and they're different people, I would give them different medicine. Yeah. Which is, you know, in the naturopathic world, that's probably the norm, but in conventional medicine, that's not the norm. If people come in with the same symptom, you do give them the same stuff.
Yes.
So that's so important. And I want to hear a little bit about how your naturopathic background coordinates with your love for food, because again, not everyone sees food and medicine being connected, but I know for you it's all one bucket. So how is that naturopathic background and the passion for food intertwining?
Well, I mean, obviously food is our primary medicine. It really is our primary source of medicine. You know, you could be taking the best herbs and supplements, but if your foundation is not strong, if you're not eating well, you're not drinking lots of water, then it's going to be really hard to maintain good health. Possibly, you know, it's impossible, really. So, yeah, I suppose, as I said, that holistic mindset definitely flows over into recipes and the advice that I give online around food. And it's, you know, really the principle behind me not aligning myself with any particular diet or way of eating, because I really don't believe that there is a single way of eating for any one person. And I think that at any given time as well, you know, life is fluid. Our bodies are fluid. What suits someone, you know, I was a vegetarian for 20 years. And then I had babies, and that way of eating, absolutely, like I had so many examples health-wise, so many little warning signs that told me that the eating that way was not good for me at that particular point in my life. And so I think that, you know, we just need to listen to our bodies and be mindful that just because, you know, Bob over there tried this diet and it solved all of his health issues, there's no guarantee it's going to continue to maintain or resolve his health issues, but also there's no guarantee that that's going to work for you or your family. So I think we just need to be really mindful and really understand that when people develop diets, that they have a financial motivation behind developing those diets. You know, there's money to be made in them, and you know, there's certainly not as much money to be made in a whole food philosophy. So
very true.
But you know, that is, that's I suppose that's that holistic mindset is just so ingrained in me. And I suppose, you know, online I don't really venture into a lot of discussion about foods for eczema, and you know, there are I could perhaps cover some foods that were beneficial in cases of eczema, but you know, like, yeah, there's just so many variables,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in, say, an allergic child, for example, if they have, you know, a really high kind of histamine response, why are they allergic? You know, is it their guts not working, or their immune systems are, you know, afflicted? There's so many variables, and yeah, that's why I'm kind of hesitant. I quite often get asked questions like, you know, is there a single proven remedy for improving memory? Well, no, there's not.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the answer. There isn't. And yeah, unless you
Well,
address the root cause of poor memory, then, you know,
mhm.
and that could be dietary, it could be gut based, it could be nervous system based, it could be adrenal, it could be hormonal. There's so many reasons why someone might have poor memory. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, so as the food source, you're kind of giving us the raw materials and encouraging us to listen to our own bodies. So, thank you for that. Like,
Yes.
everyone needs reminders about diets and how they are individual, and especially to hear that food is medicine. I know that's like foundational for you and for me, but most of us just need to hear that over and over. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know, you know, for parents, we really want to encourage parents to make whole foods the norm in their
Yes.
household. And you're really passionate about bringing, you know, that healthy eating down to the kids. And I know
Yes.
lunch packing is a huge challenge for
Yep.
many. So we're going to dig into that. Like, even the parents, and I've seen, you know, in America, our school year just started as we're recording this. And I saw all these, you know, even really like healthy eating influencers saying, oh my gosh, like lunch packing is killing me. I had no idea this would be this hard. So let's
Yes.
walk people kind of from the philosophical head to the
Mm-hmm.
practical in the lunchbox. So first in our
Yes.
heads, like what should go in kids' lunches? Do you have like a template or a routine or a guide for
Yeah.
us?
Yeah. Well, obviously it has to work for your child. So what works for my child doesn't necessarily work for everyone's child. As I said, my kids are quite open to eating a variety of different foods.
Mm-hmm.
They enjoy vegetables. So for me, vegetables always form a part of their lunchbox. I do have a bento box, which I just find really, when they were little, I didn't, but I find that really handy for the template, I suppose,
Mm.
because, you know, I really aim that, you know, one section is full of vegetables. And, you know, I say to parents, whatever your kids like in the way of vegetables is great. It doesn't matter, you know, that they're different from what my kids like, but, you know, and however they like to eat them. Like, a lot of people say to me, oh, you give your kids raw broccoli and raw cauliflower. They enjoy it that way. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if they preferred it cooked, then I might steam up some extra and put it in their lunchbox cooked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, the other part of, I have like a main section of my kids' lunch, and generally there's a decent serving of protein of some
Mm-hmm.
kind. Most often leftovers from the night before, and, you know, it could be that they do have a sandwich or a roll in that section. Sometimes I'll make up fresh spring rolls, and again, that will have the protein and maybe some salad or vegetables in it. It could just be like today, my son took a piece of barbecue chicken that we had last night that my husband had cooked on the barbecue, and there was leftovers, so he had a big hunk of that with on a bed of salad. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
that was his kind of lunch. So yeah, the main part or some part of the lunch definitely needs to have some sort of unprocessed protein.
Mm-hmm.
I find that's what fills my kids up and gives them that real sustenance to get through the whole day. Usually I'll add in 1 or 2 pieces of fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And I generally will also add in some kind of whole food treat, because one thing I learned when they were little was they encountered a lot of lunchbox bullying in that, you know,
Uh-oh.
people really noticed that the way my kids ate, and it still happens. I suppose now that they're older, they can handle that, you know, they're accepting and they're fine of the way that they eat. But yeah, I just found I actually wasn't much of a baker, to be honest, when, you know, early days. But when I had kids and when I realized that they were starting to want things like, you know, tiny teddies. I don't know if you have tiny teddies
I
in
think we call them Teddy
America.
Grahams, but I bet they're the
Yeah.
same
Okay.
thing.
Okay. Yeah. You know, and Oreos and those kinds of things. I felt that I felt that I didn't want them to miss out either. So I set about creating recipes that were a lot healthier, that kind of looked like a real, chocolatey treat, but they're jam-packed full of goodness. So, I've created, I have a cupcake that has, I think, 4 serves of vegetables in it, a chocolate cupcake that's massively, massively popular with kids and, just generally. So they'll have some kind of treat. They might have some olives in there and, but that's my basic template is fruit, vegetables, protein, and a treat of some sort.
Yep. And your lunchbox book, I opened that the other day, and my daughter, Leah, she's 11, and she just for the last year found out she's dairy sensitive. So lunch packing, where it used to be a lot more simple, it's really complicated and challenging now. So we looked through that, and she was, copying down some recipes and printing some out. I know the teddy bears were one, but she was like, Mom, this looks so good. And they're, they have dairy free, it's in the bottom. Like, she just felt so good. So thank you for those. I think they're so versatile and just so palatable, and they look beautiful. And I think that's really interesting too, the reason that you include the treat. I think that's pretty good to try to get more on an even playing field. So let's talk vegetables. You said for your kids, easy to get veggies in the lunchbox. What about the kids who maybe aren't so excited about veggies? Do you have any strategies?
Look, I think that, vegetables, a lot of parents make the mistake of just throwing the veggies in the lunchbox and hoping for the best. And that's not the right approach. They have to be accepting of vegetables before them appearing magically in their lunchbox. So, I've always discussed food with my kids. So, I talk to them about, okay, so, I'd really like you to be taking at least 2 or 3 vegetables in your lunchbox each day. What would you like? I don't just, look, I know now they've been going to school for long enough, and I've been packing their lunches long enough to know what they both individually enjoy, because they enjoy different things. Whereas, my son loves radish. My daughter doesn't like radish. My daughter loves tomatoes. I won't even try and say that with an American accent. I know I said that wrong. She likes tomatoes. He really doesn't. So, but they both like carrots. So they'll have either an orange or a purple carrot in their lunchbox. They both like leftover roast potatoes. So, they're obviously cooked. So I just say to people, just discuss with your kids the importance of these foods, and don't discuss them from the perspective that these are healthy and they're good for you, because a lot of kids don't care less about being healthy, and they certainly don't care less about being good. Talk to them in terms that really appeal to them. I often encourage parents to say, appeal to their sweet spot. So, when my son was little and he, is athletic, he always wants to be performing better with his sport. So we always talk about how certain foods really enhance the way he performs as a sportsman. My daughter is vain, always has been, loves her beautiful, long, shiny hair and her clear skin. I use that in terms of, she understands that certain food cause pimples and other foods sit well. And so finding their sweet spot. When they were little, I talk about, she loved fairies, for example. So we talk about that fairies ate lots and lots of vegetables, and superheroes, that's what made superheroes so super, is all the vegetables that they ate. So it's appealing to their sweet spot is important when convincing them, and just encouraging them to want these foods. Perhaps get, partner up or buddy up with another friend, like one of the parents of a good friend. And then, you could make it that this week is carrot week, and they both bring a carrot to school. So, they can compare their carrots. So, having
all sorts of ways to leverage what you want in there.
Yeah, having that peer support, even dropping the teacher a line and saying, when they're little, not so much when they're older, because they don't like to be, pointed out as being different to their classmates. But when they're little, they love it when their teacher, who they, admire, comments on how healthy their lunches are. So, there's lots and lots and lots of strategies.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Let's get really practical, because sometimes lunch packing is just the drudgery. Like, we're out of creative energy. Do you have any planning or prep strategies to make this doable for busy families?
I always think about lunch when I'm cooking dinner the night before. So if I can cook extras for leftovers, as I said, especially with that protein component, I'll do that. Even if it comes down to, I have nothing in the way of protein that's suitable for leftovers the next day. Or I don't anticipate there's going to be the volume for leftovers. So I might be steaming vegetables, and while I'm doing that, I'll be boiling eggs in the water in the basket underneath. And those eggs, might become curried eggs for a sandwich filling, or they might, sometimes my kids just like chopped up boiled egg, with salad in their lunchbox. So yeah, I'm always trying to just be a little bit mindful. Obviously that doesn't always work. And I have backstops for times that doesn't work. So for protein, I would either turn to boiled eggs again, or I have little cans of tuna that I would pack into their lunch. If you want to get super organized, you can even, cook, say batches of chicken fillets and dice it up and portion it and freeze it. Yeah, right. And, take that out the night before and defrost it for lunches the next day. So there's just with a little bit of forethought, is good. And the more, it's like anything, the more you do it, the easier it gets. True. It really does. The less you have to think about it. So, at the outset, you might be thinking, oh my God, I'm always just thinking about healthy lunches and I'm sick of it. But it will get easier.
Yes. Yeah. Like anything, part of your routine. And I always recommend that people pack right after dinner, just because everything's out. Your vegetables out, and there's your protein, and just get those lunch boxes out and have the kids, we have our 3 of our kids are making their own at this point. So they're all piecing it together, and they learn the hard way when they have to rush in the morning and say, oh, I've done it last night.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So whatever makes life easier for you and whatever works in with your family. Absolutely. It's the way to go.
So what about when the whole lunch comes home again, or you discover that the child has been throwing it away at school and you worked so hard to pack it? What do you say?
Oh, look, with my kids, I've just always set expectations of them. So again, it's about talking to them, finding out why that's happening, why they're not eating it. It might be that they want less food. I've definitely found as my kids have got older, they want to take less food to school and different types of food, which, you'd think it would be the other way around, but now they have less supervised time eating. So, they're basically let loose and they just want to get lunch into them. And, in the case of my son, onto the, football field and playing footy with his mates. He doesn't want to be sitting there eating a fussy lunch. So he prefers things he can hold. So, discussing with your kids what it is that they're wanting. And as I said, I have always set expectations of my kids that they eat what we pack, and that we don't waste food in our family. I buy good quality food that costs, good money. And I'm not mean about it. I'm not going to force them to eat something that's inadvertently gone sloppy. But, I'd encourage them to work around it if possible. And, if for some reason they haven't got to finish all of their lunch, then they eat it in the car when they get in the car after school. It's part of their afternoon tea.
Sounds a lot like my household.
Yeah.
So, Georgia, I love to leave parents with this super practical tip to something they can accomplish right away and feel that quick win. So if we do just one thing to improve the way we kind of feed our families, what do you think it should be?
It's always vegetables for me. If it just comes back to just adding one more vegetable into your diet, then you'll benefit enormously from that.
Sounds good. Take the kids to the store, let them choose it maybe.
Absolutely.
Choose a different way of making something.
Absolutely. There's been many cases where I presented something to my kids one way and they've, turned their nose up at it. And I've tried it differently another time. So, there's certain things that my kids won't eat pumpkin cooked one way, but they'll eat pumpkin soup. If I'd have just given up on pumpkin altogether to start with, the foods that they've rejected over the years that I've just reintroduced in different ways that they now love and are, very accepting of. So don't give up on your kids ever. I always say to parents, you would never give up on teaching your kids to read or write or to toilet train. So please don't give up on them learning to love eating whole foods and vegetables.
So true, so true. And we will link
Yeah.
to your beautiful Lunchbox book so people can get their hands, well, not really hands, get their eyeballs
Yeah.
on that because
Yes.
it's digital,
Yes.
and connect people with well nourished. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Georgia.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah, Kids Cook Real Food. This has been the Healthy Parenting Connector, and I'm Katie Kimball. Come on back next week where we will connect you with experts who have the information you need to raise those healthy kids. Thank you for being here.